Good afternoon. This is Dean Lindquist, and thank you for joining me for the presentation regarding applying for licensure and for registering for the NCLEX examination. The objectives for this presentation is to provide some information on the process for becoming licensed as a registered nurse, particularly in the state of Michigan, as well as the process for registering to take the NCLEX-RN, as well as to provide some information on where you can find additional information and resources if you should have questions regarding the process moving forward. This particular cartoon here may be a good summary of how you're feeling at this particular moment. You're finishing up Nursing 208, heading into the preceptorship, starting to think about next steps. I appreciate that it can all feel very overwhelming. Hopefully the information in the presentation is helpful and gets you moving in the right direction. This graphic is taken from the NCSBN candidate bulletin, and I'll speak to that in a bit more detail in just a few minutes. But really the process for getting a license to practice as a registered nurse is a two-pronged process. The left side depicts what is required from the nursing regulatory body perspective. Essentially, each state determines what makes a candidate eligible to get a license in their state, and they have a process to go through to meet their eligibility requirements. The second part of the process then is to register and to take the NCLEX-RN examination, which is required in all states in the United States. Put those two processes together, and the graduate of a nursing program then is able to get a license to practice as a registered nurse as long as they pass the NCLEX-RN. And I'll break this down in a bit more detail as we move forward. I'm going to focus primarily on the state of Michigan here. As I mentioned, the nursing regulatory body within a state is the one who determines eligibility for licensure in that state. In the state of Michigan, the Michigan State Board of Nursing, working in tandem with the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, or LARA, is the one who determines whether or not an applicant is eligible to get a license in the state of Michigan. In Michigan, there is an online application process through a system called MyPlus. I'm going to provide this particular PowerPoint likely through the Nursing 212 Brightspace shell. When you pull up the PowerPoint, you should be able to just click directly on the link and it should take you to the MyPlus system. However, you can always copy and paste, or you can type it directly into your web browser to get to the MyPlus system. I'm going to pause momentarily and get to that system. So we can talk further about what that particular process looks like. Okay, after clicking on that particular web address, it takes us to the Michigan Professional Licensing User System. What you want to do is scroll down and you want to click here under Nursing as a Profession. And that should take us to the nursing webpage of the MyPlus system. So there's a couple things that I want to bring to your attention. There are some very useful videos here if I scroll down. First of all is how to register for a MyPlus account. You want to make sure that you watch that video so that you properly create an account. You will use this not only to apply for a license, but from that point forward to check on the status of your license, or in the future, if you need to change your address or your last name, whatever the case may be, you will constantly go back to this MyPlus system and that one account to be able to monitor and access information regarding your license. I also want to bring to your attention another video, and it's specifically for applying for a new license, and it's very helpful. It's called New Licensees Applying for that license. You want to make sure that you've watched that video. Again, it's very step-by-step. Both of these have printout instructions to make it easier for you if you want to watch the video as well as follow the written instructions. Again, they're very intuitive systems, and they're very easy to navigate and follow. So you will want to follow that closely to make sure that you understand that process. Again, I'm going to pause, get back to a previous slide, and we can continue. Once you have created your account in the MyPlus system, there's some information that you need to enter as you're clicking on that apply for a license. First of all, it's important that you pick the correct program type. There'll be drop-down menus, and you want to make sure that you're looking for registered nursing ADN. That's the program type. It's also important that you input the name of Monroe County Community College. Again, it will be a drop-down menu, so you want to click on that drop-down and make sure that you associate yourself with Monroe County Community College. There'll be some paperwork that the division sends to the state. Again, I'll speak to that in a bit more detail in just a few minutes, but we want to make sure that we attach your application for licensure to Monroe County Community College so that they can match up the paperwork and there won't be any delays in processing that application. This program number that I have listed here, the US number, is specific to Monroe County Community College's program. So I can't recall if you have to input that number or if it will automatically come up when you click on Monroe County Community College, but it is worth double checking that that program number and Monroe County Community College are both present in that application. For the graduation date, I did provide the graduation date for the winter 2022 cohort. I did look at the video, and there may be an option to skip entering in that date. If it requires it, you want to put in the date of your commencement. Again, there's some paperwork that comes from the program that helps fill in that particular piece for the state and LARA's regulatory agency. But if it requires you to input something, then you can put in the date of commencement, which for the winter 2022 semester is April 29th, 2022. You shouldn't need to upload any type of documents. Upon your program completion, the division office will submit a certificate of completion to the state of Michigan. That is a required piece that they require from the program to verify, yes, you have completed the program, and it is a piece of your eligibility screening for licensure. So outside of that document, which you cannot upload yourself, we take care of that, of sending that to the state according to their requirements. You shouldn't need to upload any other type of documents. The licensure application fee at the time of application, you'll have to pay for that application. As you'll find out, they like to have their money when it comes to these applications. The most recent information I have is that the application will cost $208.80. That is subject to change. It is my best understanding of what the current application fee is. They also require, as we discussed in orientation, that you have to have repeat fingerprinting, a background check with fingerprinting. And to my best understanding, that's about $62.50. You will have to pay by credit card. Once you have submitted your application, they will automatically send you background check information directly to the email that you apply. So you want to make sure, or supply. So you want to make sure that you give them a reliable email address that you have access to, because again, that information is automatically sent to you. Your application and fees are good for 2 years. You can apply anytime. You can move forward and you can apply now, even if you're not completed with the preceptorship. However, it is important that you don't test until after you finish Nursing 212 and all your program and degree requirements have been met. That means any general education or non-nursing requirements have to be met before the program here will send your certificate of completion to the state of Michigan. We have had a couple of instances in which a student has finished the nursing portion of the program, yet has failed to take a general education course that is required to earn the degree. We cannot send the certificate of completion to the state of Michigan until all program and degree requirements have been met. And so those students had to wait then until they finished that coursework before they could apply for a license. I have heard of 1 or 2 instances in the state of Michigan in which somebody did apply for a license and for whatever reason was granted authorization to test, only to find out they had not completed all of the degree requirements or program requirements. And the state of Michigan did nullify those results, and the student then had to retest. So again, you can apply anytime. Your application will just sit there in their queue until they receive this certificate of completion from the program. But if for some reason you apply and you're still in Nursing 212 and you get an authorization to test, please do not move forward with that. Get a hold of me. I'll help you navigate that with the state of Michigan. It is important that you do not test until you have completed all of the program and degree requirements. As I mentioned, the certificate of completion is handled through the Health Sciences Office. Rachel is very proficient at doing so. She usually gets those certificates to the state within a day or two of your completion of Nursing 212. Official transcripts are not needed in the state of Michigan. All Michigan is looking for is your application and then the certificate of completion that we take care of. We'll talk about other states here in just a second. When it comes to their requirement. If you plan on applying in another state, it is the student's responsibility to investigate what those requirements are for licensure. And if they require anything directly from the college or from the health sciences division, that the student communicates with us or to us what those requirements are. We're happy to assist, but we cannot be responsible for looking at what the requirements are in 50 plus states. The NCLEX-RN is used in all states, and the process for registering to take the exam is not different. The only thing that is different is on that nursing regulatory side of things. What are the eligibility requirements in the state? What do they require the student to submit to demonstrate completion of the program? A very good resource of information if you're looking to apply for a license in another state is offered through the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. I did provide the website here for you. It will take you to a map with all of the different states. You click on the state that you're interested in, and it will give you contact information for the Board of Nursing in that state. Definitely the second state in terms of students applying for licensure that have graduated from our program would be the state of Ohio. This is what we know about the state of Ohio. They do not need a certificate of completion from MCCC. Instead, they require that the student make arrangement for official transcripts to be sent to the Ohio board. There was some confusion, some mention of a certificate of completion when it comes to the Ohio application. However, that is a certificate of completion from programs in Ohio. Since you're graduating from a program here in Michigan, there is no certificate of completion that we send the state of Ohio. They require official transcripts, and the division office cannot make those arrangements for the student. The student has to work through the registrar's office. You can go on our MCCC website and find out information on how to have your official transcripts sent to the state of Ohio or any other state as they are required for application for licensure. As I mentioned, at the time of application, students have to be fingerprinted and undergo a new background check. When you apply and pay for your application, you will get an email that describes what the process is, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do, what ID numbers are required, where you can go to have those fingerprints taken. So again, make sure that you give a valid and reliable email address. We talked about a bit of this during orientation, but there are some disclosures that will be required when you do go for your background check. They will want you to make a full disclosure of any type of felony or misdemeanor convictions, generally outside of any type of traffic violations. But it's important that you are honest and fully disclose what your background history is. And again, as we talked about in orientation, the decision to approve or deny that background check lies with the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. Once the student has submitted their state application, They will determine eligibility for licensure in the state. The student, however, can move forward with registering for the NCLEX exam. And I mentioned earlier the examination candidate bulletin, and I'm providing a hard copy. Hopefully, Dr. Robinson will provide that to all of you during Nursing 212. But if for some reason you want a second copy or you lose your copy, you can find it very, very easily online. And I've provided that website here to you. That candidate bulletin really outlines what the process is for registering to take the NCLEX-RN examination. It outlines how to register for it, how to pay for it, as well as how to schedule to take the exam. Now, the exam is scheduled through a third-party company called Pearson VUE, and I've given you their web address as well. And you'll also find that within the examination candidate bulletin. When you go to the ncsbn.org website and you sign up to take the NCLEX-RN, they will ask you to pay a $200 registration fee, and that registration is good for an entire year. So here's where the two parts of that process come together. You are applying for licensure in the state of Michigan or whatever state you're going to apply for licensure in. You register to take the NCLEX. When you register to take the NCLEX, they're going to wait to hear from LARA or the state of Michigan or your state of choice, whether or not you've been deemed eligible for licensure. Once they've deemed you eligible and that approval is hooked up with your registration through the NCSBN, then you will be given an authorization to test and you'll be able to move forward in scheduling a date for licensure. Please keep in mind that your registration fee is non-refundable. Again, it's only good for 365 days, which is a fairly long time. And they're looking to make sure that your name matches your ID exactly. So when you're filling out your application, when you're filling out your NCLEX registration, make sure that you are consistent in the name that you are given so that there is no confusion and no delay in your application. Once the NCSBN has been able to match your eligibility for licensure with your NCLEX registration, then you'll receive an email regarding your approval and what the next steps are. And they will send to you an authorization to test. And this is just an example of what one may look like. They may have changed by now exactly what it looks like, but essentially it's a ticket to enter. This is your authorization to test that you will actually take to the testing center with you to verify that, yes, you have been given authorization to take the NCLEX exam. As I mentioned, it's received once your eligibility is determined by your state of choice. You have to have your authorization to test to schedule your appointment. The authorization to test has an expiration date, and in the state of Michigan, that's 90 days. So you want to make sure that you are applying for licensure and registering to take the NCLEX in a time period where you know you're going to be able to take your NCLEX-RN. So you should be studying during that time in preparation for your actual testing date. If you think you need a bit more time to study, then I would hold off on registering to take the NCLEX. However, 90 days is generally more than enough time to prepare to take the NCLEX exam, so you want to schedule your exam accordingly. You must test within the validity dates that are outlined on that authorization to test. Otherwise, you have to re-register and therefore repay the registration fee in order to take the NCLEX exam. On the testing day, so you've been deemed eligible, you've registered for the NCLEX exam, you've received your authorization to test, you have signed up to take the NCLEX exam, and that is all outlined in that candidate booklet, exactly step by step how to do that. You're now ready for your testing day. Again, your first and last name has to be exactly what you put on your application, what's on your registration, and therefore what shows up on your authorization to test. If those names do not match and your ID does not match, then you're not going to be able to take your NCLEX. You're going to forfeit your registration fee and you have to start all over again. So On page 7 of your candidate booklet, there are acceptable forms of ID. Make sure that you're looking at that very carefully and that you're using that name on all of your application and your registration forms, so that there is no delay, no cause for confusion or reason for you not to be able to test. The NCLEX results are not released at the testing center. So you will take your NCLEX exam. We're going to talk about kind of when the test will time out or when you may be finished taking your exam, but you're going to leave the testing center and you're not really going to know how you did. Unlike our ATI, you don't get a readout that says, congratulations, you passed, or you didn't pass, or you need to work on these areas. That comes later. Instead, you're just going to leave. And many students leave anxious and nervous, feeling that they didn't do very well on the exam. But I can tell you, Monroe County Community College students tend to do very well on the exam, and our pass rates surpass national averages year after year after year. The results are only made available through the Board of Nursing. Now, I can tell you that we have had some students who have found out whether or not they've passed that exam within hours of taking it. We've had several students contact us that said, I took the NCLEX exam, I went back a couple hours later to my Plus account, and my account went from pending to licensed with a license number. So the student passed the NCLEX exam, and that quickly they were able to determine whether or not they have a license or not. So otherwise, it takes a few days to get that information. The Pearson VUE folks do have a way to get unofficial results after 48 hours, and you pay a small fee. I would probably guess most students don't do that. They just watch their MyPlus account or their account in whatever state of choice they've decided to apply, and they look to see whether or not a license has been granted. It's fully automated these days, so things don't take nearly as long as they used to back in the day. For example, when I tested, it was paper and pencil. It took 6 to 8 weeks to get my results. So yeah, it was a brutal 6 to 8 weeks. Now students are waiting a few hours to a couple days, and they're able to get their results. Oops. Let's see where I am. Oops, going backwards. Okay, just to make sure that you have that number, here is the information that you need, that school code. It's important that we have that school code and that you are associated with Monroe County Community College. The college does get a report on how students do. It's a pass-fail report. We can't see how many questions that you took. It's only whether or not you passed the exam on the first attempt, or if it was a repeat attempt, but you need to be affiliated with the college in order to be able to do that. We also want to make sure there is no delay in processing your application or connecting your certificate of completion. So please make sure that you enter Monroe County Community College with your application to avoid any delays. As I mentioned, in the candidate bulletin is some very detailed information on scheduling your exam. They are scheduled through Pearson VUE, and there are a multitude of testing centers in our region that you're able to schedule to take your exam. You can test anywhere. It doesn't have to be in the state of Michigan. If you're on vacation and you decide, well, I think I'll take the NCLEX exam, or I'm going to be on vacation at the time I really want to take it, you can take it in another state. It will go to Michigan because that's where you applied, and that's where you put in your program code as well. So examination appointments can be scheduled through the website or by calling Pearson VUE. And again, there's very detailed information in that candidate booklet. On the exam day, I reiterate again, it is very important that you have your ID with you and that it matches what you put on your application as well as your registration. If you don't have acceptable ID, and I mentioned page 7 of the candidate booklet, then you will be turned away. You'll have to re-register and pay for another examination fee. I'm not going to go through this. Acceptable forms of ID, these are right from the candidate booklet, page 7. Check those out. Let's talk a little bit more about the NCLEX examination. It really stands for National Council Licensing Examination for Registered Nursing Graduates. It is designed to test knowledge, skills, and abilities needed to safely and effective practice nursing. And here's the key: as a new entry-level RN and to ensure public protection. Um, this isn't ICU level, it's entry level. You are very well prepared. We have very high curriculum standards here. Again, our students do very well, both on the NCLEX exam and in practice. You probably need to do some brush up and remediation as far as those topics you haven't touched in a while, but please have confidence, go well prepared, and you should be very well prepared to take the NCLEX-RN. Passing the NCLEX-RN is the basis for licensure granted to practice as a registered nurse by state boards of nursing in the United States. On this particular slide, I have given you a link to the current test plan. If you go to the ncsbn.org website and click on NCLEX and other exams, then click on test plans, you'll be able to find the RN test plan. I can tell you with confidence that the faculty have used the NCLEX-RN test plans throughout the curriculum. Every learning activity, test question, clinical activity that you've done has been mapped and traced to the NCLEX test plan, which is good through April of 2023, I do believe, until they change the test plan and go to what's called the next gen. So you're in a good position. You're not going to go down the road of the new exam, which has some very interesting alternative exam type questions on it. But to kind of check out what the current test plan is, you can click on this website or copy and paste and get to that information. Just a quick overview, there is a breakdown of the different subcategories on the NCLEX exam, tells you kind of what percentage of questions are found in greater quantities on the exam than others. And again, the RN faculty have been all over this, and they have been mapping questions to each of these subcategories throughout your entire curriculum. So you are in good shape in that regard. Now, the NCLEX-RN uses computer adaptive testing, or CAT testing. It's a well-planned examination. It takes into consideration differences in nursing regulations across the states. It is designed to be fair for each candidate and provides ample opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge and ability as an entry-level RN. Previous knowledge about using a computer is not necessary to take the test. However, you have lots of experience through ExamSoft and taking computerized testing, so it should not be an issue for you whatsoever. On testing day, it is important that you know where you're going. If you're late, they will not allow you to enter late into the exam. And as we know, if you're not able to take the exam when you're supposed to, if you don't have the proper ID, or if you're late, then you have to re-register and repay to take the examination. So take a practice run, make sure you know where you're going, take into consideration weather or construction, and plan to arrive to the testing site 30 minutes ahead of time. You certainly will be better served if you're there and waiting to take the exam than if you're rushing to make it to the testing site. Make sure that you have the proper identification with you. Check, double check, triple check that you have what you need. When you get there, you will have to do a digital signature using a palm vein scan. That's required there. You know, security is huge in this particular exam. You will be photographed, and you will not be allowed any personal belongings. They do have earplugs available for you if you request them, but you cannot bring your own. You cannot bring candy. You cannot bring water. No personal belongings are allowed. The confidentiality agreement, as I said, it's a very highly secure exam. There are proctors. Again, you're photographed as you're taking the exam. You are recorded while you're taking the exam. The computer that you'll take the exam has a timing device, so you know how much time you have remaining to complete the exam, as well as a built-in calculator. And you should be fairly accustomed to that because of our ExamSoft software we've been using. You can leave the room, but only with permission, and they do have some optional breaks built into the testing time. If you do leave the testing area, you have to scan out and scan in using that palm vein scan because of their security requirements. Because of computer assisted testing or adaptive testing, excuse me, the computer makes sure that the exam has enough questions from each area to match the test plan percentages. An item is selected that the candidate is expected to find challenging. So it has a 50-50% chance of answering the question correctly. That's the starting point for any particular content area. The goal of the exam is not to be too easy or too hard, and to get statistically a maximum amount of information to determine the student's ability. CAT testing uses 3 different rules. There's the 95% confidence rule. I'll let you read these over, but there's a minimum of at least 60 questions that have to be answered. It might be 75. I'd have to look on the NCSBN website. It was 75 and then they dropped it to 60 during COVID. They may have taken it back to 75. I'm not 100% sure. If the computer statistically determines that the student is, statistically 95% confident that the student understands the material, then it turns the exam off. So once it's reached a 95% confidence level that the student either knows what they're talking about, it'll turn off the exam, or a 95% confidence level that the student doesn't know the information, then it could shut that off. Because of our high pass rate, most students have, if it shuts off earlier, it's because they have passed the exam with that 95% confidence level. The maximum length of the exam, so if the computer isn't able to reach that 95% confidence interval in that minimum amount of time, it continues to run. The maximum number of items that a student might have to answer is 145. And it determines the final ability on a pass-fail condition. Again, there's more information on this in the candidate bulletin, but if, for example, you go past that minimum number of items, it is still determining your ability or your knowledge level with a maximum number of items being at 145. Or there's the run out of time rule. The maximum testing time is 5 hours. You should really pace yourself, 1 question every 1 to 2 minutes. The length of the number of questions does not necessarily indicate pass fail. Again, it has some very complex, complicated statistical underlyings to this computer adaptive testing. So don't let any of these things freak you out. You just go in, anticipate 1 to 2 minutes per question, and let the computer adaptive testing do its thing. Rapid guessing, this very last point, is hugely important to remember. If you feel that you are getting close to that 5-hour mark and you still have questions, let's say you're at 100 questions at 4.5 hours, do not rapid guess. I believe I have a slide here, yep, on the very next one, about rapid guessing. Because this is your results are statistically analyzed, rapid guessing can dramatically lower your score. So if you're just going through and clicking B, 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 just to have an answer for all of the items remaining on the exam, remember that the test is starting out with a question that it thinks that you can answer correctly or incorrectly 50-50. If you answer correctly, it's going to move you on to a higher level question, or it's going to move you on to a different content area. If you answer incorrectly, it's going to give you a slightly lower level question in the same category or in the same content area, and it will continue to do that until it statistically determines that you don't know the information about that particular content area, and then it moves on. If you rapid guess and put just B's all the way across, you are telling the computer very quickly that you don't know the information, and there is no chance with those different uh, grading strategies, if you will, for the computer to statistically determine that you know the material. It's rapid guessing. It really is disastrous on adaptive testing. So again, you just follow that pace. You carefully read and consider each item before you answer. If you run out of time, then you hope that you've answered enough questions for the computer to be able to determine that you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you're going to run out of questions to take, which is acceptable, or you're going to hit that 95% confidence interval, whether you've passed or you haven't. So again, please do not rapid guess. That will just devastate your chances of passing the NCLEX-RN exam. There may be pre-test items, and then there's also some research items on the NCLEX exam. The pre-test items are not scored. You won't know what they are, but they will not count in your NCLEX results. And then because of the next generation exam questions coming up in 2023, they're still piloting some of those. I believe that you get an indication whether or not you want to participate in that pilot or not. And again, those questions will come at the end, and they do not impact your NCLEX-RN score. I do strongly encourage you, though, to participate in that research because it helps to ensure that the NCLEX-RN maintains rigor and reliability in testing knowledge levels moving forward of future graduates. Testing questions, you've had some opportunity to do a lot of these through the ExamSoft, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on there. I will bring to your attention this web page here that will give you an opportunity to take a look at the different types of NCLEX exams questions. So make sure that you visit that as you're preparing to take the NCLEX-RN. Again, more information that you can read through on the different types of alternative format questions. You have experience in many of these, if not all of them, through the ExamSoft and what the faculty members have put together. So it's just kind of reiterating that information. I mentioned the special research section. It is not part of your NCLEX score and generally has an introductory screen that kind of lets you know that you're entering into this portion of the NCLEX exam. Doesn't affect your results, but it does help in the future development of NCSBN examinations. Just very quickly, once you pass your NCLEX-RN exam, please keep in mind that if you're licensed in the state of Michigan, there are continuing education requirements, 25 contact hours, or CEs as we call them, over the course of a 2-year recycling period. In Ohio, there's 24 contact hours, 1 hour is required in law. In Michigan, there's requirements for human trafficking and pain management. You do need to keep those records for 4 to 6 years. I can tell you, as somebody who has been randomly audited, you want to keep any type of CE certificates in one location, because when you get audited, you don't want to have to backtrack and find that information. So when you go away, you do a conference, you do an article, send in for CEs, make sure that you keep all of that information so that it's easy to access. I sit on the Board of Nursing. I deal with compliance conferences. I get to interact with licensed professionals who are now on probation because they're not able to prove that they've done their continuing education. It is a real thing. So please make sure that you're keeping that information, and the more organized you are, the better off that you will be. So I know that I have given you a whole bunch of information and a whole bunch of stuff to talk about or to think about. You have the resources. Really refer to that candidate booklet. Make sure that you go to the MyPlus, watch those videos to be able to apply for licensure. If you have additional questions, I'm always here to help you, as well as Rachel. Again, she will get those certificates of completion to the state in a very, very timely manner. after, usually within 1 or 2 days after completion of Nursing 212. I wish you all the best. It's been a pleasure learning and working with you over the last couple of years. It's been an amazing journey for you. It's been a real honor to watch you grow into the professionals that you are today. I wish you well. Please make sure that you prepare a bit before taking the NCLEX examination. Review those concepts that you haven't touched in a while, whether it's mental health, PEDS, OB, whatever the case may be. Please keep in mind that you have access to your ATI materials for a year after program completion. Lots of students use that particular material to help them prepare for the NCLEX examination. They go back through all of those practice questions and those type of things. The program does not require an NCLEX prep course. So we don't require you to take a particular course. You're welcome to do that on your own, and some students do. Most students, I think, use their ATI and course materials and do very, very well on the exam. But I wish you all the best. Again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. And please make sure that you stay in contact with the program and let us know how you're doing. Best to all of you. Thanks so much.